Good morning, everybody. Bruce Jones here, and welcome to a Thursday morning. And I thought I would do a training on how to set a book page up in InDesign that will set up for bleed. This is for KDP Amazon. And we've had a good dialogue going on. There's been a question in the group on setting up some bleeds and things on a page. And I thought I'd just do a little quick training this morning to show you what that means and how to do it. So what I mean by that is if you have a picture book, so it doesn't have glare, like this, excuse me, something like this, and people talk about bleed, what they're talking about is that the picture in the book, I'll go to this side, the picture in the book runs right off the page. So in most books that we create, so like here's a book, we'll have a margin around the outside. So let's get that over there. There we go. So we'll have a margin running around the outside that's clear of any printing or any words or anything, all the way around the outside of the book. And the specs, I think you can go down to 1/4 of an inch. I like to have at least 1/2 an inch. And so that's just to have that run around so it's clear all the way around. But if we're doing picture books or children's books or even just books like that, we might want to have the picture or the color, in this case, let's use this book, run right off of the page. So here the color runs right off the page, and now here the picture runs right off the page. So that has to be set up in a very specific way for it to work correctly when you upload your book to KDP Amazon, and we can do that easily in InDesign. I'm going to show you that right now. It's just often there that gets people confused. So let me bring up, let's going to bring up an InDesign file here. Let's get that. And if you have questions, just put them in right here. Just put them down here in the comments section. And that, whoops, do that. So let me just get this up here and screen share. Do my screen share thing. And we'll do, let's just do the entire screen because it seems to work a lot better. Like so. And we'll get this up here and let's get up this. And we'll move all this stuff out of the way. All right, we don't need that. And we don't need this. We don't need this. Okay, here we go. So this is my publishing book that I have. And you'll notice that this book has been set up with page bleeds in it. And you can see that right here where I have extra page. So when they cut this book, when they trim the book and printing, they will cut off this extra material that's running around the outside of it. So let's go and set up a brand new document. I'll show you how I sort of walk through it and keep saying about all the parts going in the right places. So one of the things to remember when you're setting up page bleeds is that which makes it a little tricky is that they're only cutting off the top, the outside, and the bottom. So in this particular case, this is a book, this is a page spread from my publishing book, and you'll notice that it has, in fact, let me just make sure that we are, it is going correctly here. Yep. Let's just bring full so we can see me. All right. This is the case where one page isn't bleeding, one is. So a couple of key things to remember about page bleeds. One is it's the top, the outside, and the bottom. The other is if you are bleeding anywhere in your book, you are bleeding everywhere. Even with one page like this is just an occasional page that runs through this book at every chapter is the only pages that are bleeding. The rest of the pages don't. I have nice wide margins running around. But if you have one page that does this, you have to set this up for the entire book. So that's something key. You can't just sort of pick and choose and go here and there with it. So that's a key thing. And there is no bleed in the gutter, the center part of the book. So it's only on the 3 sides, the 3 outside sides, nothing here in the middle. So let me show you how I kind of set a page like this up or a book like this up. So I'm going to go to new document. And I'm going to, usually I'll work in a page spread. I don't always work in page spreads when I am working on a book. Sometimes I work on single pages, but in this case, it just works better. So I'm going to put 2 pages. And just for the moment, I'm going to make this start on page 2 so everything sets up right. I'm just going to set up let's change this to inches so you can see it correctly. And I'm just going to do a standard 8.5 by 11 book. So nothing fancy, just a very straightforward book. And what you have down here, there's a section in here that sometimes confuses people because it's labeled bleed and slug. We do not want to do anything with this area down here, this bleed and slug area. You just want to leave that alone. That's a completely different thing, and it doesn't work for setting this up. So we're going to ignore that. Even though it says the word bleed on it and it confuses people, we have nothing to do with it. So I do this in 2 steps. The amount of bleed that you have to use is 1/8 of an inch. So it's an extra 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 that goes around the outside. So I set up my document, 8.5 by 11. I know I need to add that 0.125 to the outside, the width of the book, and to the top and the bottom. So my width right now is 8.5, so 8 inches, 8.5 inches, but I need to add an extra 1/8 of an inch. So I'll add that because this is going to be cut off. This makes the page a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make it 8.625. I've added that extra 1/8 of an inch to the width. And then in the height, I need 1/8 of an inch on the top and 1/8 of an inch on the bottom. So it's going to be 11.25. I add the 2/8 together and I get 11.25. And then this is where I do this in 2 steps. And even though I've done a zillion books like this, I still go in this order because it's kind of a mindset, and you'll see what I do. I know I'm going to be cutting off an extra 1/8 of an inch. So I will set up my margin at 0.125 on the top. On the bottom, I'll set it up at 0.125. I'm going to unclick this because I want these to be a little different. So the top is 0.125. That's 1/8 of an inch. The bottom has a margin of 0.125. The outside has a margin of 0.125, and the inside has nothing. There's no margin. I do this first. This is sort of how I set up my bleed part. You'll see in a second here. So I create my book, and it should come up right here. So here's my book. This is the rough of my book. So I have, you'll notice, I have a 0.125. I have a little bit of extra space out here. This is the part that's going to be cut off. All this stuff around the outside. You notice the inside, nothing's being cut off. So the first thing I do is I do this. So that tells me, okay, that's the part that's going to be cut off. And I come up to the top and I'll pull down a guide. So up in the ruler, there are guides, and you can just pull them down. And if I pull it into the center of the page, it stays inside the page. If I come out to the pasteboard, it goes out here. So I am going to put a guide here. Let's see, do we have it right here? Okay. And then we'll come and we'll put one on the side, like so. And what I'm doing is I'm just marking where my margins are. So I'm using the guides, and I'm going to replace it. I'm going to change my margin. I know this seems a little confusing, but it's always confusing setting this up, and it really does confuse people. And I'll put one at the bottom. So now what I've done is I've just marked where those borders are. Okay, so just mark the borders. I'll then come back, and that's the part that's going to be cut off. Whoop, I missed one right here. No, I just have it. And then I'll come back, go to page setup, document setup actually, and I'll change my margins to what I really want. So I want a 1/2 inch margin all the way around my book, and I will change this. So I'm adding a 1/2 inch to 6.25, this one to 0.5. This is my margin. You'll see in a second. This is 6.25, and this is 6.25. All right. So those are my new margins. This is my official margin that I'm going to be working with. And here we go. All right. I hit OK. And so now what you can see is this is the margin of my book. This is the part that's going to be cut off out here, this outer part. So now I have everything set, exactly what I want. I can put columns in here. I can do anything like that. But now I have everything in place exactly. Let me just save this. So we just let's save this so I have it. Let's put this in here. I'm going to turn this into a page with bleeds. All right. So clear margin, that will be the margin of the book. In fact, I think I'll just check this to make sure you're always checking. I do a lot of checking a little bit less. Let me go back and just fix this. It's always, no, inside. Okay, we're good. Looks like it's good. All right. And now when I bring in a picture, so let's bring in a picture. So we're going to go to place. And I'm going to go to document. Set up a picture this morning that I can use. There we go. And beach. Okay. So now what I do is here's my picture. I'm going to bring it into my document, open it up, and I want to make sure that I place this document. Let's go zoom in up here in the corner. I'm going to turn off the hide extra edges. My picture has to be able to be in the bleed area so it can be cut off and trimmed for the book. So I make sure that the picture comes out into this area. This is the area that's going to be bled. This is the margin, but this is book with bleed, so I can put things in the margin. And I know that that will be trimmed off. And at the center of the gutter of the book, I'll just bring it to the gutter mark, the edge of the page, and my page is ready to go. All this is set. This is now going to be trimmed right here. It's going to come off. And there you go. So that's how this all works. It's pretty simple, but I walk through it. Let me just do this. I walk through it very carefully every time I do this, because you just have to keep your wits about you, because it's less on the inside than it is on the outside. So hopefully that helps a little bit and gets you set up and get going. And that's it. So see you in another video. This is Bruce Jones from the How to Publish a Book Facebook group, and we're doing bleeds in InDesign. All right, talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, that's terrible.